Dirtle Magic. Thank you for tuning in to Dirtle Magic. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell if you like the content you see here today, and leave a like and share the video with someone you might think is interested. Leaving those likes really helps us out, but another way to help us out is by using our TCGPLAYER affiliate link below. If you're looking for singles, sealed product, or gaming accessories, please consider using our link to support the channel. We also have some playmats at inkgaming.com. Go ahead and hit the link in the description to check those out. Alright, let's grab some spells and dirtle with some magic. Hello and welcome back to Dirtle Magic. Today we have the deck tech for Casual Jadzi. No storm here, let's go ahead and see what we can cheat into play to finish off our opponents and how we get it to the top of the deck. For this deck tech in particular, we are concentrating on the front side of this dual-face commander. The back side is 2 green sorcery. Put a number of lands from your hand onto the battlefield. If you have 8 or more, you may discard a card to return the sorcery to your hand. The front side, however, like I said, is the side we are concentrating on. And this side consists of 6 blue for a legendary 5/5 human wizard. Discard a card, return this to your hand. Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, reveal the top card of your library. If it's an online card, you may cast it by paying 1 rather than paying its mana cost. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. So the focus of this deck is trying to abuse that Magecraft ability. Whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, make sure we try to scry something or manipulate something to the top we can cast for 1, 8 drops, 7 drops, 6 drops, get them down for free, be able to do other stuff, and smash our opponent's face. With that said, let's see what categories we are covering today. Today our categories are Omens, Cataclysm, Deja Vu, and Fate. Alright. Let's go ahead and scry a bit. First up is Omens. Let us foretell the future and the doom of our opponents by getting stuff to the top of the deck. First in the batch of cards of many are Opt, Preordain, and Cream of the Crop. Opt at instant speed for just blue gives us scry and draw a card. A little bit of a no-bo with the commander, but it still gets us stuff out of the way and gives us a replacement effect for itself. Preordain, blue, scry 2, draw a card. This is sorcery, however, we can put something we don't want to cast for Jadzi on top, draw it, and then have the second scry be something we do want to cast for just 1 generic mana. Cream of the Crop is an interesting old enchantment, 1 in green. Whenever a creature comes into play under your control, you may look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the creature's power. If you do, put one of those cards on top of your library and the rest on the bottom. So something like Torrential Gearhulk is very good with Flash. Comes into play, we basically get to look at the top 5, select one to put on top, and have ready to cast with Jadzi. Our next batch of Prophecy Helpers are Lifecrafter's Bestiary, Thassa, God of the Sea, and Jace's Sanctum. At the beginning of our upkeep for the Lifecrafter's Bestiary, we scry 1, and whenever we cast a creature spell, we may pay green to draw a card. Thassa also triggers for scry on the upkeep, plus gives evasion to our big creatures. Always good. She herself is indestructible, so extremely hard to get rid of. Jace's Sanctum lowers the cost of our instants and sorcery spells by 1, and whenever we cast said things, we get to scry 1 in case maybe we want to take a chance with Jadzi, get something off the top out of the way, and see what we can get otherwise. Yet more scry for the deck, Kasmina, Enigma Sage, and Nissa, Steward of Elements. Kasmina specifically starts with 2 loyalty for 1 green-blue. Its first ability plus 2 scry 1 is the main attraction here, but she can make us a token for defense if we need it, and the -8 is relevant to the deck. We get to search for an instant or sorcery card in our deck that shares a color with this planeswalker and cast it without paying its mana cost. However, she starts at 2, getting to 8 is going to be difficult. She's really there for the scry. Nissa, Steward of Elements is similar. She comes in with X loyalty, being X green-blue to cast, plus 2 scry 2, so she has a little bit of a better scry than Kasmina, and her 0 ability allows us to play creatures or lands from the top of our library straight to the battlefield if their mana cost is equal to or less than her loyalty on her, which is also very good. Her -6 is kind of okay. It lets us animate 2 of our lands to make them hasty flyers until end of turn, but that's not really the reason why she's in the deck. It's usually the scry, and if we can, that 0 ability is pretty good. We are not done manipulating the top of the deck yet. Ponder, Anticipate, and Brainstorm allow us to reorder the cards at the top of the deck. Ponder specifically, if we don't like any of them, allows us to shuffle the deck and then draw a card. Anticipate lets us look at the top 3, put one of them to our hand, and the rest on the bottom of our library in any order. so it's not necessarily as good, but it does give us some selection and get some chaff out of the way. Brainstorm is probably the best of the bunch at instant speed. Draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. That way we can manipulate the top of our deck. If we've had a dead card in hand all game that we can want to cast for just 1 colorless mana, we can do that then with our commander. And last but not least, we have ways to look at the top card of our library whenever we want to and play different cards off the top of our library. Courser of Crewfix says we can play lands off the top, but we do have to put at the top of our library revealed. We can't just look at it and keep it secret. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under our control, we gain 1 life. Vizier of the Menagerie says we may look at the top card of our library at any time, so we do not have to reveal it. We may cast the top card if it's a creature card, and we may spend mana as though it were any color to cast creature spells, which works out sometimes. We do have some color-heavy restriction cost in the deck. Vivian Monsters Advocate is a Planeswalker for 3 loyalty for 3 green. And she says we may look at the top card of our library at any time, and we may cast creature spells from the top of our library. Very much like the Vizier of the Menagerie, but she also makes us tokens for defense, reach, trample, or a vigilance counter on those tokens, 3/3. Not too shabby, but the -2 is also really good. Whenever we cast our next creature spell this turn, we get to search for another one that costs less and put it into the battlefield and shuffle our library. Can potentially be very deadly for our opponents. Next up, we have the dreadful foreshadowing of a Cataclysm, because frankly, opponents aren't going to let you just walk on over with our huge creatures and smack them in the face. We have to get some stuff out of the way. The journey to the Oracle can be a treacherous one. Pondrify, Rapid Hybridization, and Reality Shift will turn our opponent's creatures into something they weren't when they left home today. Probably should have just stayed home. If we want to take away some abilities from some extremely annoying possible commanders, maybe some other utility creatures, and we don't want them to die necessarily, Lignify and Kendra's Transformation will do that for us, and Kendra's Transformation helps us draw a card, so not too shabby there. Of course, not everything we're going to encounter is going to be a creature. Venger Shaper Savant can flash itself into play and return a spell off the stack to our opponent's hand or a permanent they control. Acidic Slime can come into play and destroy a target artifact or enchantment or a problematic land, which is always good. Also go into defense with that Death Touch ability. Beast Within likewise also can destroy just about anything: planeswalkers, lands, enchantments, artifacts, a creature if we really need to. It does give our opponent a 3/3 beast creature token, so do take that under advisement. And Crows and Grip, destroy target artifact or enchantment, split second. Unless they have a special action like Morph, they're just not doing anything to save their thing. We can't call this section Cataclysm without causing some cataclysms. Cyclone Summoner, if you cast it from your hand and it enters the battlefield, returns all permanents to their owner's hands except for lands, giants, and wizards, and our commander is a wizard, so we don't really have to worry about that too much. Flood of Tears returns all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. If we return 4 or more to our hand, though, we get to cast something, or play it rather, to the battlefield without paying the mana cost, and this could be a form of cost reduction, plus we get rid of a few problems along the way. Aethergale, we return 6 target non-land permanents to their owner's hands. It does target, so be careful about Hexproof, Shroud, and Ward. Azuri's Predation basically can wipe a board and leave us with an army. It does cost 8, but that could be good with our commander considering. Bane of Progress, of course, comes into play. It destroys all artifacts and enchantments, including our own, so be careful, but it does get quite sizable against the right opponent. For our next category, we have Deja Vu, because sometimes bad stuff just happens to you twice, and we want to make sure we can keep doing bad stuff to our opponents and seal their doom. First amongst our recursion is Skullwinder. Death Touch 1/3. When it comes into play, we return target card from our graveyard to our hand, but an opponent also gets to do that. Good for politics though, not too shabby. Torrential Gearhulk comes into play. Flash speed, 4 blue for a 5/6. Very good with cream of the crop like I mentioned earlier, but when it enters the battlefield, we get to cast a target instant card from our graveyard without paying its mana cost. It does get exiled after the fact, but a lot of our instants are the scry type of effects, so we don't really have to worry about that. Also helps us trigger our commander to get something bigger into play. Our Archaeomancer comes down and returns any instant or sorcery card from our graveyard to our hand, and that includes some of our mass removal, so that's always good for trying to get to our opponent's faces. If we want something specific back without any drawbacks or restrictions, Eternal Witness, a classic card at this point, comes into play, gets us anything back from our graveyard to our hand. Ball Get Recovery is much the same, except it's a sorcery and can be a land drop for our turn because of the other side of the card. Just taps to give green, but it does come into play tapped. Seasons Past is very good in this deck. 4 green for a sorcery. Return any number of cards with different converted mana costs, or in this case mana value, from your graveyard to your hand. Put it on the bottom of its owner's library. If you can get this back repeatedly from the deck somehow and keep casting it, it can be a lot of value. But there's one card in this deck that can give us extreme amounts of value, and we'll get to that in the next section. Welcome to Fate, where we try to seal the deal against our opponents using our commander to cheat out large creatures or just cast them normally, outvalue our opponents, and smash in the faces. As far as value goes, we have Nezahal Primal Tide, Kogla the Titan Ape, and Brynlin the Moonkraken. Nezahal is an extremely hard to kill, cannot be countered, no maximum hand size to you, Elder Dinosaur. And whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, we get to draw a card. The reason it's hard to kill is we can discard 3 cards to exile it and return it tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step, dodging a lot of targeted and mass removal. Kogla the Titan Ape, 3 green for a legendary 7/6 ape. However, when it comes into play, it smacks somebody right across the face as long as we don't control it, and when it attacks, it destroys one of their supportive trinkets, an artifact or an enchantment. Also, for 1 green, it can return target human you control to its owner's hand. This gains indestructible until end of turn. Our commander is a human, Eternal Witness is a human, Arcavios is a human. This card is not to be underestimated. Last but not least is Brynlin the Moonkraken, 6 blue for a 6/8 legendary creature Kraken. However, when it enters the battlefield and whenever you cast a spell with converted mana cost 6 or greater, you may return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. That could be something of ours to cast again, it could be something of our opponent's, and especially if we have something like Brainstorm in hand, we can put it on top of the deck, cast Brainstorm, get it out for 1 with our commander, and do amazing amounts of things. Of course, we can't just outvalue our opponents to death, that won't get us too far of anywhere. So we have creatures like Giant Adaphage, End-Raze Forerunners, and Siege Behemoth. Giant Adaphage is a 7/7 with trample for a 5 green. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, create a token that's a copy of Giant Adaphage, which will have this text on the token, making more Adaphages if you keep connecting. Can end the game fairly quickly. End-Raze Forerunners, when it comes into play, gives 2/2 in Vigilance and Trample until end of turn to each of the other creatures you control, thereby leading to a large attack that can also end the game. It itself also has Haste, Trample, and Vigilance, so it will also be able to attack. It's kind of like the poor man's Craterhoof at this point. Siege Behemoth, one of my favorite green cards. 5 green for a hexproof 7/4 hard to get rid of creature that says, as long as it's attacking, each creature you control may assign its combat damage as though they weren't blocked. So somebody's got an indestructible pin in the butt in your way? No, yeah, it doesn't matter anymore. And last but not least, we have the extreme value of Amanatu's Augury. 6 blue for a sorcery, exile the top 8 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield, and then until end of turn for each non-land card type, which would be artifact, enchantment, planeswalker, and creature, we may cast that card of that type from among the exiled cards without paying its mana cost. And for cards that are 2 of something, like Torrential Gearhulk is an artifact creature, or Corsair Crewfix is an enchantment creature, you can pick one of those types to apply to this card. This card gives us an extreme amount of value, including off our commander. However, it does exile the cards, so if you want to recur this and keep playing it, you can't do that forever. However, it is much worth an include in this deck. That's it for this deck tech, featuring a casual build for Jadzi, Oracle of Arcavios. If you're looking for the deck list, it's in the description below. Go ahead and click that link, check it out for yourself, and let me know what you think of a casual build for Jadzi. Most of the research I did for this, a lot of it was Storm, and on this channel we just don't do that kind of thing necessarily. If you do build it Storm, let me know how it turns out for you. It is still an 8-drop commander, and that's a hefty price to be paying. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this series, and we are on to the next Strixhaven commander. Until we get there, take care of yourself and stay safe out there.